Um, I am going to start by saying a big thank you to John for once again handling things while I was furloughed and the other specific project officers were furloughed. This was only a 2-day furlough, so this was a quickie. And in case anyone's wondering what I did with my furlough days, my refrigerator is clean. It's all it took was a 2-day furlough, I guess. The other one was too long. I just didn't get to it. All right. I know the secret life of U.S. Department of Education officials. All right. So we are not quite to the TA resources section of our time together. Um, but you are hopefully in the right place. We are in our monthly directors webinar, and we have 3 different things we're going to be talking about today. One is sustainability tools with Tom Delaney. The other is second, I should say, is the LEAD IDEA Center with Dina and Abby, who I just said hello to. And the third, and for a full hour, will be the Virginia SPDAG. And they'll be talking about the things that they've done that have led to sustainability and deep implementation. I think they'll have lots of ideas for you. And they said they're very happy to follow up with us if there's something we want to dig in on. So be taking note of if there is a topic that, I'd like to hear a little bit more about this. So, high level agenda, we'll be talking about complex change and family partnerships, sustainability tools, the LEAD IDEA Center, which is very helpful with IEPs and other things we're going to learn about in the Virginia SPDIG. This is our theme that we've been using. I wanted to show this umbrella of sustainability when you think about optimizing dissemination, developing partnerships, and showing impact. This is the next image we're going to be digging into for at least the next 4 months. We'll see if we want to do it longer than that. Raise your hand if you've seen this model of complex change before. Okay, Dina definitely has, Abby has, Tom has, Kelly has. Okay, and I don't see all the hands because I'm presenting, but it sounds like a lot of people have. So, what it's saying, what I see it saying at least, is that to engage in or to successfully change something complex, you need vision, skills, motivation, resources, and an action plan. And then it's showing if you're missing something, what you will get. And I think it's pretty interesting as you think about big initiatives in your state, or if you're a national provider, the different states you've worked in, or even in your own organization, when something has been missing, one of these things has been missing, to think about, oh, is that the reaction we got from people? Did we see confusion, anxiety, resistance, frustration, or a false start? So, the way that we're going to get into this is anyone can speak to it who's speaking about various things, but particularly, we're going to get into family engagement and how SPDIGs work with their family partners, which of course is a requirement in IDEA and in the SPDIG notice that you work with an OSEP funded parent center. But you may have other family engagement centers as well. So we're going to think about dissemination. We're going to think about complex change, and they're going to talk about how they've built their relationship over time, the family partners and the main SPDIG management, often at the state education agency, how they measure success in their partnership, how do they support each other's dissemination, and which areas of the model of complex change are their strengths and which are a little bit tougher. So, with that, I'm going to turn things over to Tom Delaney because we received a question from one of our SPDIGs who said, we've been looking at the sustainability tool, the one that many of us have seen. I can't think of this name. What's it called? The Sustain tool? Is that it, Tom?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Common one.
Yeah.
If anyone can tell me, I'm just not thinking of it. But
Yeah.
we looked at it before together at a SPDIG national meeting, and since then, and then Tom found another tool, and so he was kind enough to say he would share it with us. And then we're also going to ask you what tools you've used for sustainability so we can learn from others. So feel free to start putting things in the chat about sustainability tools you use, and I'll turn it over to Tom.
Okay. And logistically, am I running my own slides or does
You are
John
running
have
your
them?
own slides. You're the master of
Okay.
your own ship.
Now I need a minute to pull them up, everyone. Let's see, and I will
Everyone could be
quickly
thinking
put.
about their own sustainability tools while you do that.
And while you're doing
Right.
that, Tom, let me go ahead and put a plug in right now for the evaluators group. Really happy about that group and the leadership we've had in doing it. However, the steering committee is what we call it, is going through some change, and we've got an opening for a couple of spots to help guide the evaluators community of practice or work group. If you're an evaluator and that's something you're interested in doing, it's about an hour a month outside of the meeting, so it's very light lift. But if you're interested in doing that, please email me at signetwork@uoregon.edu. And with that plug over, Tom, back to you.
That worked out rather well. Thank you for that little space of time. Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Delaney. I'm the director for the SPDG in Minnesota. Our state personnel development grant is focused on improving graduation rates for American Indian and Black students with disabilities. It's our largest graduation gap in amongst all demographic groups in our state. And it is also our state systemic improvement plan selected indicator, indicator 17. So most of our work consists of working with school buildings and sometimes larger school systems, implementing Check and Connect using the SPDG as a source of support to the schools. We are in a no-cost extension year, so this is probably our final year, and this is the time where if you haven't thought about sustainability, really got to think about sustainability because this is for real. Also, our experience in the SPDG has in general been the more simple you can make something, the more likely it is to actually happen, to be carried out by human beings. Intricacy and complex thought is great, but for real groundwork, especially when you're trying to reach typically underserved student populations, well, and historically underserved, simplicity is the way to go. So our little dilemma was, okay, how can we take a look at sustainability in this or no cost extension year? And it's not a new tool. It's been around quite a long time. It's called the Balanced Scorecard. And it is used typically in evaluation and improvement type situations. Let me tell you what this thing does. Our key questions for our SPDG, yeah, concern whether or not our school grantee sites are actually internalizing the way we've been asking them to operate in terms of using implementation science, linked teams model, usable innovation, all that stuff. But are they actually internalizing it so that they do it on their own without our presence, sometimes literally at the table, such that it will exist when the SPDG goes away? In those cases where we're not 100% there, it's a simple question. What would help in the next month or next 3 to 6 months, the next year to get them to that point? So here's this balanced scorecard, and it can be any shape, but the square is the easiest one. And all this thing is you put in the corners the four big things you're shooting for. Okay, and it kind of charts out the space in terms of quadrants. So for us, our four big questions are autonomy. Does the school implement Check and Connect on its own, or do we have to do a lot of prompting still? Does the school priority? Does the school prioritize Check and Connect on its own? Is it an administrative priority? It shows up in the priorities each year, or do we have to show up and say this is important? This is important. Sustainability. It's really focusing specifically on sustainability. Is the school system contributing its own funds towards implementing Check and Connect? And the last piece is the school improving Check and Connect implementation on its own? So visibly, for example, using data to identify challenges and shortcomings and then getting past there. In a balanced scorecard, these can be very complex, and you can break each of those quadrants down into having specific criteria to measure progress towards what you're talking about. But for today, I just wanted to share this one. It's a simple tool that kind of gets you thinking in that space of evaluating sustainability. And for each of those quadrants, it's a question of what needs to happen ASAP, which you could scrawl by hand in a now box for any quadrant. What needs to happen soon? That's what I think of as the next 3 to 6 months. And then there's the long-term stuff like, I know that this is going to need to happen. It's just not going to be on the horizon here pretty fast. Dirt simple tool. You can use it over and over again. And I'll tell you, in our experience, as much as we do the annual district capacity assessment, the DCA, this kind of thinking can help you in the in-between time so that from meeting to meeting with an implementing site, you can have just a basic idea of, are we making our way towards this being a site where if I'm gone next week or if I'm gone a year from now, this project would still be happening. So that's what I'm talking about, that internalized operational norms. Okay. And I just wanted to share that. I think I got 5 minutes for it. I think I used 5 minutes, maybe less. And thank you. If you want to ever shoot the breeze about it, send me an email and we can talk about it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom. Impressive time management and presentation skills. All right, Abby and Dina, welcome. So Abby Foley and Dina Slanda, am I saying it right, Dina? Okay, awesome. They are from the IDEA, the LEAD IDEA Center, and funded a few years ago, have just really quickly gotten into things. I love it. It's the kind of TA center I love. They don't ask to do another lit review. They want to get down into the work and work with states right away. And so it's been interesting. They've been talking with a couple of different SPDIGs to see how they might be working with them. And as we were having those conversations, I thought it would be really nice for other states other than these two states to know about this center. So I would be interested, as before they start speaking, could folks raise your hand if you've taken a look at LEAD IDEA Center's resources or engaged with them in some way? I see one hand. Good. Okay, good. Wisconsin. Okay. It's just nice to have that data, those data, I thought. All right, Abby and Dina.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm Abby Foley. I'm the director of the LEAD IDEA Center. I'm joined by my colleague, Dina Slanda, who, as you heard earlier, is fighting a little bit of a cold. So she's going to be behind the scenes and giving you all the resources we share in the chats and kind of monitoring there. And I'm gonna try to stick to the 20 minutes that we have, but just know I can always speak so much longer about this topic that I'm really passionate about, as well as my team. So yeah, great to be here. We're going to just give you a little sort of overview, really kind of crash course in who we are, what we do, and how to engage with us at the LEAD IDEA Center. I recognize some people, as Jennifer mentioned, we've been having some meetings with Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. So I see some familiar faces here and just excited for the chance for more of you to see what we do here. So LEAD IDEA is a 5-year technical assistance center funded by OSERS, and we're in OSEP's personnel development program. As you can see here, we're large and mighty. We are managed by AIR, American Institutes for Research, but we have many amazing partners and could not do this work alone, especially as you'll soon find out, given the large audience that we serve. I still consider us new. We're almost entering our halfway point as a TA center, and just, could not be, as I said earlier, just more passionate about the work of the center, and just know we have so much more that we have and want to do, and want to leverage our partnership with you all and states moving forward. So our mission, we work with leaders to improve systems serving children with disabilities and their families through effective implementation of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So hence the LEAD IDEA. You might initially be wondering, what do you mean by leaders? Is it special ed leaders? We get that question a lot, and we have to be very intentional about using the word leaders because we span the birth to grade 12 continuum of administrators. So that's early intervention program administrators as well as school building principals. Less so special education administrators, but we also know that their role is so important as a key collaborator with our school building principals and assistant principals. So we, like many of the other OSEP centers, do a lot of knowledge development. So we create a lot of products and resources and tools that can be embedded in coursework and professional development. And you'll get to see some of those today. We also do on-the-ground capacity building and systems change work. So we've started our center kind of on the ground, building things from the ground up and piloting in hopes of scaling real solutions that work for building leadership capacity in special education. The other thing I want to emphasize is that when people hear our name, they think, oh, you're focused on compliance. And I think, we are so much more than that. We treat our work as compliance is like the minimum, but we also know that there's so much more we need to do to truly meet the needs of students with disabilities. So, our work is cut out for us. We have big problems to solve here, as I'm sure you all might know. As the numbers of students with disabilities is continuing to rise, we also know that school building principals are feeling underprepared to meet those needs. So this is a real challenge and a real problem. And principals do impact the outcomes of students with disabilities, and yet are massively underprepared in this area, in their sort of teaching, as well as in their preparation pathways leading up to that principal role. So such important work here, I'm sure, and we'll talk, we want to hear from you in just a bit, that you might be feeling and seeing some of this in the work that you do. We've spent a lot of our early work as a center understanding these challenges, understanding these experiences. So we've done need sensing and focus groups, and we have an online survey that is always going. So, to share some of the most pressing challenges principals face when we ask them, this is what they tell us. Retaining my special educators and supporting them. I don't know enough about special ed to be able to support them. I just send them to the special ed administrator. Engaging with families, we always hear about the advocates and the disputes and how hard that is for principals, as well as just really understanding best practices for meeting behavioral challenges, academics and whatnot. So they definitely acknowledge that they, especially new principals, start, and this is a lot of learning on the go, which is, we can do better than that. So just curious, Dina and I would love to hear from you all. Are you currently involving principals in your initiatives? If so, how? Do principals fully understand their role supporting your initiatives? And, if somebody wants to come off mute and share quickly, we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, feel free to use the chat.
As people are thinking about that, Abby and Dina, this was years ago, but it was a really interesting case study where one of the SPDIGs had been doing the work of, you talk about getting an administrative support before you start, right? An administrator could be, depends on where you're thinking of. And they were receiving superintendent support, district superintendent, signing on the dotted line, and they're saying, but we're having such trouble. The principals don't know that they got signed up. They're not excited to do it. So what they started to do was have a week-long training. I don't know if it was all day, every day, but a training for the principals about what they were planning on doing. And then the principals got to choose whether they would sign up for it. And that was so much more successful. So that's what you made me think of.
That's wonderful. Kind of from the beginning, really making sure they understand their role. Wonderful. So Lucy, a previous SPDIG involved principals in training, and that's great. It's fully for building administrators. Awesome. So I'm already seeing a good connection. Lucy, were you going to say something too?
Oh, I could just add what we found. So we had a 2016 SPDIG, and then we sort of did the same type of project, almost identical, in 2020, and we're just wrapped that up this past year. What we learned from the 2016 SPDIG was that if principals weren't side by side with their teachers in our trainings, which happened to be for UDL, you can just throw in the towel. So that was a big learning that we gathered from the first SPDIG. And then in our 2020 SPDIG, we had principals involved from the jump and involved on the district implementation team, leading their building implementation teams. And we had a much greater rates of success. So we're now trying to apply that to the new SPDIG we're working on, which is fully all for principals.
Awesome. That's great. So many connections. I love that. And something we often say in our work is, reminding principals that, the leader sets the tone. So whatever it is that initiative is, they are the ones who have to buy in and provide that on the ground support. So regardless of what you're focusing on, and it seems like there's so many different things happening where principals are involved. And I think that's wonderful, especially because we are sort of bringing that special ed lens and we're just helping them kind of understand those connections very intentionally. And creating the conditions. So really that's, one of the biggest things our center did at the onset was helping principals understand their role when it comes to creating systems and creating the conditions for students with disabilities to be, successful, thriving, progressing, and accessing an education. Based on what each child needs. So we had identified 6 what we call IDEA leadership essentials, and these are basically our competency domains. And we were very intentional to align these domains with existing administrator frameworks out there, whether it was the case administrator standards or the PEASL standards, right? We didn't want this to make it seem like this was a whole nother framework of things they needed to learn and do. It's actually already work that aligns to the things they're already responsible for doing. So I know this is kind of the anchor of our work, and it's on our website, and it shows up in some of the resources that we'll share throughout today. But this has given us kind of an organizing schema to focus in on the most impactful role and responsibilities that principals can do to lead stronger systems. So when we identified our 6 essentials, we've simultaneously been building the ship and sailing it, right? So we use those essentials and we use the law, right, IDEA, to, be at the heart of every product and every service that we offer. However, we also know that principals are very busy and they care far more about problems than they do about a competency. So we don't always come at them very intentionally with join this and learn about this. We'll actually kind of come at them with the problem and say, get some help that you can, use and strategies you can use tomorrow to solve that problem. And that was a big takeaway for us. We got feedback. We don't want our presentation on theory. We want, scenarios and solutions. And so we took that to heart, and that really shows up in every, product and service that we offer. I'm going to go into more in depth about some of these things now. Just wanted to emphasize that we've sort of, as I said earlier, spent the first few years building and piloting, and we're now really ready and eager to scale. So on our website, and I know Dina's already popping some great links in the chat, we have tools and learning resources, diagnostic tools, online learning modules, and something we call navigators. The diagnostic tools, I'm going to sneak peek preview in just a few minutes, not on our website as of today, will be on next week. And so hope you're really excited to see that. And it's really just assessing what leaders know and do and how systems are working. For students with disabilities, we also have something called the Respect Survey on our website, and that is a tool for understanding special educators' perspectives and needs. We have learning modules. Our initial learning series have been focused on IDEA 101. We also have, and I heard family engagement's a priority here, we have some good resources focused on family engagement and what the principal can do to strengthen that family engagement at key periods in the special ed process. And then one of our most popular tools is the Navigator. You might be thinking, what's a Navigator? It is essentially a toolkit that comprises of, it's very problem-based. So we take a big problem like special educator retention. We look to the research and say, what are the key things that are causing special educators to leave? And then we create some interactive toolkits that provide scenarios and strategies and solutions and resources to help navigate and address those challenges. So definitely check the navigators out. We have 2 right now that are school age focused. One's on retention and one is on strengthening services for students with disabilities. Again, all through that leadership lens. We also offer, as through our targeted technical assistance, what we call a solution-based learning series. It's kind of like a intense webinar series, if you look at it that way. It's a 3-part session that, again, kind of addresses like red flags or major issues. The first part is a live learning session where they get some good foundations and strategies. There's an in-between application and practice activity. And then the third part is a networking activity. And so that has gone really well, and we're going to be rolling out future learning blocks. And in fact, our second learning block will be registration will be opening soon, and that's understanding the role of the administrative designee in IEP meetings. So if you know any leaders or they're part of your work, we'd love for you to spread the word on that. One of our more intensive offerings is a leadership academy. So we've built a whole curriculum that is really focused on increasing principals' capacity to lead effective, sustainable systems for IDEA. It's year-long, blended learning, so it's in-person events, monthly learning sessions, personalized coaching to support application of learning based on roles, and then there's flexible as well as self-directed learning. Dina is our intensive TA lead, and I know would talk even more enthusiastically than I am about it, but I did just want you to see the topics that we are covering in case there's alignment with the work that you have going on. You can kind of see the scope and sequence throughout the year, and that we, again, aren't really coming at them with, competencies or, compliance related things, but big topics that actually move the needle in changing systems. So I do want to show you really quickly our growth tool because it's a very popular tool. So I'm just going to pull that up very quickly. I think I have it up behind this. Sorry, I'm just going to stop for 1 second. Maybe it's behind this. Nope, sorry about that. Now you see all my, let's see, nope. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry about that. While I find the window that I was looking for. Okay, I'm going to share again. Okay, so this is our leadership self-assessment, and I share this because it's a key part of our Leadership Academy, but it's also something we've been talking a lot to states with because it's something that I think we are kind of getting ready to be able to support if there's an interest. And it's basically a diagnostic assessment that is geared for individual principals to gauge what they know and what they don't know about leading strong systems for students with disabilities. So it's online, it's interactive. They can kind of go through and self-assess, different elements that align to our leadership essentials. So you'll see the topics align really well with the leadership essentials. The 6 different essentials, and at the end, everyone's favorite part is that there's this really cool kind of gauge that can show them the data about, where their strengths are or what could be some priority goals for them to address or topics for them to learn more about that they can then create a learning plan around. And it's all interactive and online and will be on our website. So if you think this would be helpful for your work when it comes to orienting, principals to topics or, things that are going on in your work that might involve them understanding what they know and what they don't know about some of this, this could be a really great and powerful tool for you to introduce them to. And you can today, bookmark our website. And then on the website, you can subscribe to our newsletter so that when we do post new products, you'll be informed right away and you'll know when it's up. You can also check out our LinkedIn and Instagram so that you can follow along there as well. And then last, I think I just wanted to end with, if you are interested in exploring how we can support your work, like we'd welcome a conversation. We would love to learn more about your initiatives and priorities and needs, and identify ways that we can help you leverage some of our resources, tools, and expertise. So just please reach out. We'll put my email in the chat. Send me an email, and then we'll schedule a call with the team so that we can discuss. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for the time today. And before I turn it back over, does anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask while we're here? Or anything anyone's excited to check out or learn more about?
One thing for folks to think about if you are considering writing another application, a SPDIG application, and you want to work with principals in some way, this might be something that you can leverage.
Yeah.
Leveraging is very popular with peer reviewers who are looking to make sure that you're making the best use of government funding. So just a thought. But also certainly SPDIGs that are in process could also be thinking about how they could sign principals up for these or use the resources. So that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Abby. And Dina, I hope you feel better. But we would love to have you back sometime soon to hear more about some of what you're learning from principals and hear about your work with SPDIGs that hopefully is coming up soon. All right. Thank you so much, Abby. Thank you, Dina.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Take care.
Bye.
Lots of nice comments in the chat. All right. So yay. So Virginia, we have Aaron Sturgis and Michael Gregory representing Virginia. They are part of a larger team, of course, as SPDIG's work. But they are a very important part of Virginia's overall plan and how they've worked to ensure they have deep implementation and that they will be sustaining their work. I know it's always nice to hear from your evaluation team as well about the reports they put out and things. There's so many things that have been done really well in Virginia, so I'm glad they get a chance to share that with you. So I'm going to turn the stage over to Michael and Aaron.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, we've actually, our evaluation team is amazing. They're very involved in SIG Network, and I appreciate them for that. I have been with the Department of Education in Virginia for about 8 years. The whole time we have had a SPDIG. Sun Young and Jennifer have tried to rope me into a number of presentations. I have avoided to this point, but here I am. So longtime listener, first time caller. And but I'm excited to talk about some of the work that we've been doing. We've had some, just to kind of give you some context as I open up the presentation here, we have had some major shifts in leadership, both in terms of state leadership, but also just in terms of some turnover within our agency that has had new people in different positions like me. I'm our co-director for this particular SPDIG. And I am joined, I guess I'll tell you, my working title is MTSS coordinator. Like I said, I'm the co-director for our SPDIG that we have now. And then I'm joined by Erin Sturgis, and I'll let her introduce herself real quick.
Hi, I work with Michael at VDOE. My title is the MTSS Special Education Specialist. I also co-direct our school-based mental health grant and project manage a personnel development grant. And I will just shout out to, I know we have Dr. Jody Sirocco on, who's the director of the VTSS Research and Implementation Center. And I saw a couple members of our evaluation team as well, who Jennifer mentioned, our awesome team. So while they are not presenting, it is collective work. So I just wanted to acknowledge their presence, and we're excited to see them on as well.
Absolutely. And I put them on the spot constantly. I'm not going to make you say anything, any of the few that are on. I also saw Kelly Henderson, our family engagement partner, is on as well. So there's plenty of Virginia people out there in the crowd. But please don't feel free to hop in. If you're on the Virginia team and you feel like you have something to add as we're going through, please feel free to hop in. And then also, just to everyone who's joining us today, if you can't tell, we're relatively informal. we're going to talk today about a little bit about our SPDIG, but a lot about kind of our comprehensive approach to supporting MTSS in Virginia and what that looks like in terms of sustainability across grants in a number of areas, whether that be funding, whether that's leveraging successful practices across grants to build and fill gaps in new funding opportunities. And so if you feel like we aren't getting to the point around sustainability and you have specific questions, just feel free to hop in. And with that, I will go ahead and get started. In the spirit of SIG Network, we do have an opener. So feel free to throw this in chat. Feel free to come off of mute. If you could compete in any sport in the Winter Olympics, what would it be? And while you think about what Winter Olympic sports exist, maybe there's some Winter Olympic fanatics out there. I personally was not, so I had to Google this. And I initially thought, man, bobsledding would be fun. But then we watched Cool Runnings with my children just a couple days ago, and they were just hurling down basically an ice tube at 80 miles an hour in a tin can. And that was not for me. So curling. Curling is what I would do. It takes a team. It takes a lot of practice, and it takes every element of the team to be able to be successful. And so curling is my speed.
I'm looking at the responses in chat, and my dad is an orthopedic surgeon, so I wasn't allowed to do 85% of the things that you're saying in chat. But I would love to watch all of you participate in those highly bone breakable activities.
Yeah, and I think the Winter Olympics started yesterday too, so happy watching. Maybe the one for Cool Runnings. All right. So I kind of gave you a little primer of what we're looking at. Kelly Churchwright, you mentioned triathlon. Certainly not a Winter Olympic sport, but I am a triathlete. I'm doing a full Ironman this year. Anytime I'm able to talk about that in front of a group of people, I'm happy to do so. So I am looking at doing my first full Ironman this year. And if triathlon was a winter sport, I might be out. But I certainly like it the way that it is. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about, with the main idea being sustainability, but really looking at how we've branded ourselves, what some of our priorities are, and how we've been able to go about maintaining kind of our base level offering to the field, but also incorporating different grant activities to be able to enhance our support to the field. And then I do want to spend quite a bit of time talking about our evaluation. We've really spent, like I said, we have some of our evaluation team on. We have spent a couple of years into a deep dive of what more of a comprehensive evaluation plan for MTSS in Virginia, what that looks like, building a new logic model, building a new plan. It has been a labor of love, but certainly something that I think is going to be really helpful for us moving forward in terms of sustainability. All right, so first, sorry, I gotta move the sharing. First of all, so we developed our Creating Capacity for Change Collaborative just a couple of years ago. I'm going to say 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, as we received our newest iteration of our school-based mental health grant. And then also in 2020, that was 2022, and 2023 is when we received this iteration of the SPDIG that we're working under. And we have a number of LEAs who work with us in different capacities. We also have a number of university centers who work with us in terms of implementation support for what we call the Virginia Tiered System of Support. But then also a number of other initiatives that are happening kind of in our umbrella. And it felt a little bit disjointed. And this has been super helpful for us. I will say kind of in the realm of sustainability in creating this collaborative, the way that we explained it to all of our participants is that if you are receiving services, receiving resources, or depending on which funding stream you're working with us on, receiving funds, you're a part of our Creating Capacity for Change collaborative. That collaborative has all of us as state leaders, it has division leaders, it has our school leaders, it has different leaders in communities, and being able to, it's really provided us an opportunity to, one, kind of brand ourselves a little bit differently as we grow and expand our offerings in multi-tiered systems of supports in Virginia. But it also has then allowed us an opportunity to grow different communities of practice. It's been fascinating to see the way that just kind of branding our initiatives kind of under one umbrella led people to talk a little bit more, to reach out a little bit more, to be able to learn from one another. We see different LEAs who ended up being a part of this and ended up being a little bit more a part of that community, kind of reaching across and saying, hey, I heard you talking about doing this. And so we're seeing some of these good practices that were one-offs in certain LEAs that, as we group them together in this collaborative, have really been able to scale in different capacities. Go. Again, you all have obviously definitely seen the cascading model, but this is how we operate, right? That systemic approach. We operate at the state, and I think the most important part to me is the continuous feedback loops that you see throughout the cascade. We, as we talk about and as we go forward and talk about our evaluation, we've been really purposeful in making sure that those feedback loops actually exist and building structures that we're actually getting feedback to be able to inform our practice and talk about what's successful. To the lead center's point, we work with principals in a number of initiatives that Aaron can talk a little bit more in a little bit, but making sure that we have set up structures to be able to get feedback directly from them on things like, we want more action-oriented training, we want takeaways, we want this, and this, instead of getting theory and hearing kind of these big concepts which sound great, but how does that help me in my day-to-day? And so as we are working through what sustainability looks like for us, this is kind of the underpinning of our logic in supporting the field in Virginia. Oh, I went the wrong way. All right, so I think it's helpful, the technical assistance structure, and I see a lot of familiar faces. We've talked quite a bit about what technical assistance looks like from state to state. I was in a couple of states before I came to Virginia, and Virginia's technical assistance for MTSS is pretty robust, and so I think it's helpful as we talk about what we're doing. I think it's helpful for you all to know kind of the person power behind that, what that looks like for us. And so our Virginia Tiered Systems of Supports is it's a collective of organizations that helps to support implementation of MTSS. And the Virginia Department of Education's main implementation partner is Dr. Sirocco's center, the VTSS Research and Implementation Center at Virginia Commonwealth University. And every LEA, and so right now we're in approximately 53, 54, so about half of LEAs in Virginia receive support from us. So every LEA that receives support from us gets 2 state systems coaches, one from the VTSS Research and Implementation Center, and one from one of our training and technical assistance centers. And they're regional. And so, like I said, everybody who ends up working with us gets two state coaches and all of the training and professional learning that comes along with that, and the coaching. All right, so our foundation, the core components, the MTSS core components kind of across the board are relatively similar, right? If you look state to state, they're relatively similar. I will say, in terms of, as I framed this, and I'm not going to read these to you, but as I framed this in terms of sustainability, I think one of the key things that I would point out is, we have spent the last, I want to say 5 years. Jody joined us about 5 years ago, and I got in my position about 5 years ago. And we were at a point in terms of implementation that we had enough data to recognize what was working well and what wasn't working well. And so we've been on a journey of change. And so my first piece of advice, if you're working in a system that has been built before you were there, but has been around for a long time, is don't be afraid of change, incremental change, instead of upturning the whole thing. But don't be afraid of incremental, purposeful change. And that is one of the things that we addressed first, was our core components. Our core components were developed back in like I want to say 2014, by a team of people who were no longer with us, and that's perfectly fine. But what we really did is say our core components as they existed, did they really represent the foundation of what we were trying to instill in school districts that we were working with? And some of our answers were yes, but we need to really explain it. The way that we were training it wasn't necessarily easy for school divisions or school districts to be able to understand. And so we put together a team. It took us about a year and a half of really purposeful meetings and discussion to get to a place where we were able to agree that, you know, these are the core components. This is the foundation of everything that Virginia is about when it comes to MTSS. This is the foundation of what we're training in our technical assistance and our coaching. It's the underpinning of our new evaluation plan. And so we felt like it was really important to take our time to get this right. But also in terms of sustainability, we needed to make sure that they aligned with how we were interacting with the field now and not, 10, 12 years ago.
Michael, can I add something to that as
Yeah,
well? From a sustainability lens as well, there were two things that we had a lot of discussions about surrounding, because to Michael's point, while VTSS and an infrastructure in Virginia had existed for a long time surrounding systems work, people had engaged in it in different ways through different lenses and through different iterations, right? And so there wasn't always a collective understanding when we talked about MTSS, or even people would say, we don't do MTSS, we do VTSS, right? You'll actually notice in the logo that's on this slide, we added a different color V to the middle of the M to make sure everybody was clear that VTSS is the people, it's who's providing support. But what we do is MTSS in Virginia, which sounds silly, but it's been a mantra that we've kind of taken on, because we also want to ensure people have access to MTSS support from the state agency, even if they're not a VTSS participating division, which was in mind as we were having conversations with Dr. Sirocco's group and other members of the state and doing this work. The other thing I'll say about sustainability is there was some heartburn for people who have been involved in different capacities when we're like, hey, we're updating some things. And a lot of it was really about framing the conversation, exactly like Michael was saying. Also in Virginia, we use standards of learning for academic instruction, and they're updated every 4 to 5 years. That's like standard practice. And so we really tried to have the conversation surrounding, we are making this updated essentially curriculum surrounding the work that we're doing in alignment with all of the instructional and educational best practice that we provide in Virginia already, as opposed to making people feel like, one, it's stagnant, it's never going to change, or two, we're doing it all over again, right? It's like, hey, we're using new evidence and best practice to update our priorities just like we do in every other area of education in Virginia. And that was very supportive of people's understanding of why and kind of the buy-in in terms of being committed to some of the updates in the work.
thanks, Darren. Yeah, and like I said, feel free to come off the mute or throw anything in chat if you feel like you have anything to add or anything resonates. Yeah, it was I maybe I had blocked that out of my mind for a while. It was a number of years of there would be like national surveys that went out to Virginia, and they'd be like it would there'd be like 50 or 47 states who are implementing MTSS and not Virginia, because nobody knew what we were actually, they were doing the work, they just didn't know what it's called. Was it VTSS? Is that the same as MTSS? No, we're doing PBIS. RTI is happening here. And it was a cluster. And so that is, yeah, as especially Jody and I, and then Erin, when she joined us, we worked very purposefully. Language matters. Language matters big time. And we worked very purposefully to get to a point where everybody could understand that concept of VTSS is who we are and MTSS is what we do. I said it very flippantly in a meeting, and it ended up on our it was basically like a t-shirt at that point. So it did it it really changed it really did change understanding in the field, understanding at the SEA level, and for us to be able to then kind of have to go back and update all of our documents as people were talking about MTSS in Virginia from the state agency as well. It's been a labor of love. All right. So some of our priority areas, and this is where I was saying, we're here. This is obviously the directors meeting for SPDIG, but when we look at sustainability, we're looking at our SPDIG as a major part of that. But also we have different elements that are involved, and I think it's important to talk about because we have lessons learned along the road that have helped us get to a place where in our newest iteration of our SPDIG, we are offering services to the field that look very different than we did back in 2017. So as you can see, most of our work in Virginia, we're very fortunate to get have funding from the General Assembly, and as a part of our state budget, it's not significant. It supports about, I think I did the math, it's like 9% of our work. So we are kind of almost like a self-funded little area in the state education agency, and we are I guess proud of our track record in terms of having discretionary grants to be able to continue that work and scale at the rate that we have. And so as you can see, we have a number of state personnel development grants. We got our first state personnel development grant back in 2007. I have also been kind of on a journey for that. And, another kind of element in terms of sustainability is, as we have started to lose people, right? So I've been here for 8 years, and we've lost a lot of the people who weren't, a lot of people have left who were here in previous iterations of our SPDIG and how things were built. It's like certainly have a historian. So I have spent quite a bit of time over the last year, calling people who used to work with me and to say like, hey, how did this happen? What happened here? So that we're able to kind of talk about how we built the system that we're in, and that we're not losing some of the lessons that we learned, both good and bad, and we're not kind of repeating mistakes. So I think one of the key things and one of the things that we talk about with Jennifer and Sun Young about pretty frequently is Virginia. We've been really fortunate to have kind of some steady partnerships. And, I talk about, turnover and having an historian, but, since 2007, there's only been like 3 or 4 people who have led our MTSS work and led some of our grant work. So we've been really fortunate to have stability in this area. And so as you can see, our grant managers, I cover 2 of them, Aaron covers 2 of them. And then, Christine, you see on our school-based mental health grant that just came to an end last year, also worked in our department. So everything that we're able to all of our grant activities we're able to collaborate on. We're able to kind of talk about what's successful in one area to build another area. And then also going back to that language and communication, because we are a small but mighty team, and we work with a number of collaborators across the state, we're able to kind of make sure that the messaging is going out in a way that is going to continue to get buy-in, and then also work in a way that that drives success for us. All right. So I will say I did talk through one of our activities, and I apologize for that. I realized that about halfway through I didn't bounce back to it, but we'll give you a little bit more time on this one.
So we, as Michael was just talking about our priorities, we're going to go a little bit more into some of our specific grant work and evaluation next. And a large part of that is related to alignment. So we wanted you to take a few minutes. John's going to put you in some small breakout rooms So even though it's only a few minutes, you all should have time to share. And we want you to just come up with one word as a group that kind of resonated with you when you talk about what alignment means in the work you do. And when you come back, John will open a Mentimeter and you guys will be able to pop in that word so we can kind of see a word cloud of what alignment looks like for this group.
Thanks, Aaron. So everybody should have the opportunity to join a group. If you don't see the option in the bottom of your Zoom window in the toolbar there, sometimes you have to click on the dot, dot, dot to open up the rest of your tools. You should be able to enter. Like Aaron said, take a minute to talk about what alignment means to you and your work. And then when we come back, we'll enter your group's one word into the Mentimeter.
Award that we are going to speak to in a couple of slides. We've worked our way to where we are in our implementation universe through different iterations of multiple grants that have all focused on a systemic approach grounded in the cascading model of support that Michael showed earlier. And he referenced the kind of two-way communication stream and why that was really essential. Something that you may have seen in our alignment definition related to context. This is something I'm very passionate about. Our whole team is. I'm just like really obnoxious and loud and talk a lot, but I'm really passionate about supporting different contexts. And even in looking at the next few grants, we had a number of we call them divisions in Virginia, LEAs, districts, depending on the language that you use, who were hesitant to engage and work with us, not because they didn't want to do the work and they didn't recognize priorities of the outcomes that they would see as a result of it, but because they were worried about different contextual factors that impacted their ability to engage. Geographically, we are ginormous. And we have very rural areas and we have urban areas. We are a highly military connected state. So we have a lot of turnover in staff, and we also have a lot of movement in our student and families. And so a huge part of the work that we have done is to contextualize our work, hear the feedback, the concerns, the excitements from the people that we're supporting, and then we build that into the work that we're doing. And that directly relates to the personnel development grant, which is focused on special education teacher recruitment and retention. I was excited to hear. It sounds like there are some great resources I'm going to be able to access after this. Thank you guys for sharing those earlier. A big part of the work that we've done in the personnel development grant is recognize that in order to best support teachers, we have to support the administrators, the principals, the assistant principals who are providing support to those teachers. And we need to provide support to the division to make sure that they can use a cascading model of support to ensure that training, coaching, and technical assistance, along with targeted supports, are being provided to all of the different levels within their organization. We're in the last year, it's crazy to say, of PDIG. We've learned a lot of lessons. And as a result of that, you're good to go to the next one, Michael. As a result of what we learned about what was effective and not effective with recruitment and retention, we were able to use that to build part of our proposal for the School-Based Mental Health 2022 grant. This grant was very exciting because what we were able to do is really merge a lot of the work that was happening at the VTSS Research and Implementation Center, work that was happening at DOE related to recruitment and retention as part of our grant, but also in other offices. And we recognize that this was an opportunity to help people see that MTSS and systems level work was not just one thing. It was not just, to Michael's point, PBIS. Hey, we came in implementing PBIS. That's what systems means. Or we came in under RTI. That's what systems means. We really use this as an opportunity to say, how do we build the capacity of our state staff and our division level staff to help divisions make really targeted decisions that support recruitment and retention of staff and support really targeted services for students in terms of school-based mental health support that actually result in outcomes for students and are individualized and data-driven. And all of those things relate to the work that's happening in MTSS, but it's not necessarily a lens that people had in mind when they thought about the work that was happening. So to Michael's point, this is when we really built our Creating Capacity for Change collaborative, because what we were discussing a lot was, hey, all of these divisions who are doing work in school-based mental health world in partnership with us in this grant, our divisions participating in our personnel development grant, and all of our divisions who are participating in VTSS in whatever capacity are all hearing the same language, having the same conversations about systems work, but maybe through different lenses. And so until this point, they hadn't been able to make the connection that they were all really approaching things in the same way. And so that was a really kind of exciting point in time for us. Slide, Michael. As a result of those two grants, we saw a lot of impact. This slide really is related to the impact that we saw. We saw 50,000 students in 1 year gain access to school-based mental health support. We saw divisions creating data collection systems at the staff level and the student level. We heard from our state level coaches, hey, we're really learning a lot about applying our coaching in a different way. It was really kind of exciting across the board. And we realized that a lot of the lessons learned in our recruitment and retention specific grants would support us in a more integrated and aligned approach to MTSS holistically, which led us into our state personnel development grant, our most recent iteration. And we are focused for our state personnel development grant, which Michael is the co-director of, and I am fortunate to work on this project with him and Jody and our eval team. It's really focused on delivering, ensuring that students receive high quality instruction. We're looking at HLPs, EBPs. How are we building the capacity of our school-based staff, but also how are we building the capacity and skill set of our state and division level staff so that if one person leaves, we're not starting all over. We're really focused on the system instead of an individualized training model that relies on that one person to be present and providing support to see outcomes. So as a result of all three of these grants, one of the things that we recognized, and forget the grants, like go even further back, right? A lot of the amazing work and support that's been provided by VDOE, by the RIC, and by a number of state and national technical assistance centers that we've partnered with, what we found is the people who received direct training could do the thing. Whether it was a recruitment and retention thing or providing a specific instructional practice in a classroom setting or putting a data collection system in place, they could do the thing. They could conceptually understand the system, right? And we would see sometimes a really nice connection between the need for the system and the practice, and sometimes there would be a disconnect. Or again, it would be really person dependent. A coach in a division left, and then we would have to go back and work on building that capacity. To Michael's point earlier, we also heard a lot of divisions say, we need our training and coaching. We need to leave feeling like we have something in our hands. Like we have something we can roll out and do tomorrow. We can explain it to people. It's impacting our practice as soon as possible. And so we worked in partnership. Same awesome group, right? We worked in partnership to establish the Implementation Science Academy. And the first iteration of this, our personnel development grant and school-based mental health grant divisions participated in. And it was a 6-part, 1.5 day each time in-person academy where division staff received information about what implementation science was and how it related to MTSS, but they also did it with their division team and with their state VTSS coach on site to support them with development of an action plan and implementation plan to support their work. So at the end of the year, they left and they were like, for the next 10 months, this is what we're doing. This is our professional development plan, our coaching plan, our data collection plan. We have meeting structures in place and teaming structures in place. This is how we're progress monitoring. And it's no longer conceptual. We understand how to do it. And now we understand why the how to do it is just as important as the what we're doing. We received a lot of feedback from the divisions who participated. It was overwhelmingly positive, which is really nice. But we also received some really not even constructive, but just like, this would have been helpful, or if you do this again, you should try, right? So we did. We said, cool, we're going to do it again. And we're going to incorporate all of this awesome feedback and see how we can make this even better. And on the next slide, it kind of breaks down. The next year, we facilitated Implementation Science Academy as related to our priorities for the State Personnel Development Grant. Instead of focusing on recruitment and retention, we were working with school divisions on implementation of high leverage and evidence-based practices, on selection of those practices and deselection based on data that they collected. And instead of being a 6-session series, it was 5. That was some feedback that we received as well. And so this is just kind of a breakdown for you of the key topics that were discussed at each of those sessions. Again, a huge part of each of them was a really work-based, focused time. We have been very fortunate to do this in partnership with Dr. Sirocco and staff at the VTSS RIC, and have recognized that we had an opportunity to incorporate this into some of the exploration and installation process when we have new divisions who want to partner in MTSS implementation in Virginia. And this is a huge sustainability piece for us, because in essentially 10 days over a year, we can have 8, 10, 12 divisions participate with our staff and leave with a really solid knowledge base and solid action steps that then their coaches who are with them can work individually with different divisions and teams in between those sessions and as follow-up. But it's a huge sustainability piece for us, because instead of saying, all right, well, this division, you guys go here, you haven't gotten training on this, so we're going to try to link you over here. It, in a way, is a one-size-fits-all approach. However, it's completely contextualized while you're there, because it's paired with that individualized coaching support. And the focus of implementation science, while the content on implementation science is the same every time, the area of focus is completely different with each cohort, because it's relevant to the area that they're focused on. So we are now running 2 cohorts this year, both focused on HLPs and EBPs related to our state personnel development grant work. It's going really well. The divisions are like actually reporting data to us, like we're not having to reach out and say, please, can we get this information? They have like a system in place. They're excited to share the data with us because they're using it in the in-between. It's not just summative reportive data that they're giving to us. It's what they're using to drive practice in their division far beyond just the transformation zone that they're working with. And so we're really starting to see a large-scale impact, which I'm obviously excited about. I got really geeked out talking about this, but Michael knew what he was doing when he told me I could talk about it. So it's really exciting. If you have further questions about it or want to talk about it, I think there are just tremendous implications for how something like this can be used to leverage support for a large group when there are a few of us, right? Like, we are a small but mighty team, not just Virginia, like this call, we're all out here doing this hard work. And we have a finite number of resources, especially when you look at personnel. So if anyone has further questions, yay, I see people say they'll be in touch. I obviously am super excited to talk about it, as you can tell. And so part of that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael in just a second, but I'll just cue it up as we move into the evaluation and research section and say, while all of this was going on and before all of this was going on, we'd been working very closely with our evaluation team on not changing, but just how do we expand upon existing forms of evaluation so that we're doing all of the best practice things that we are modeling and asking through the whole cascade. How are we looking at progress monitoring differently, not just focusing on summative outcomes? Are we assessing things beyond just what the grant measures require, but like actually to help us drive some different things? That is very complex for us as it is for many of you, because we did have multiple grants going on. We also work for a state that has priorities that aren't related to the grant work and sometimes have overlap with MTSS and sometimes don't, but we know everything is rooted in systems work, right? So as we were developing Implementation Science Academy and really thinking about systemic approaches differently at the state as well, I won't look at any of our eval team members right now because they're probably cringing thinking about all the fun conversations when we're like, hey guys, we have an idea. But we've had a lot of ideas in the last couple of years that have resulted in some really cool things. And so I say that to you all from a sustainability perspective as well, because Amanda, all the ideas, lots of ideas. But what it has done for us, number one, it's really energized our team in terms of thinking about how to make our work better right now, but also, man, we're writing out 10-year, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to be doing. These are great things that are going to be happening, whether or not it's through grant implementation, right? And so I will turn it over to Michael as he talks about a little bit of our reach and stuff, but that was kind of all happening at the same time. So I just felt like that was important to make the connection.
Thanks, Aaron. That was all happening at the same time. And luckily, Aaron covered a couple points in what we're getting ready to talk about. No, it's perfectly fine. I think just to maybe expand on what Aaron was talking a little bit about is we got to a point that we're doing what we feel. I mean, like put simply, we feel like we're doing a lot of really cool things, a lot of really cool and impactful things. And one, historically, we aren't very good about the dissemination part to reflect on sustainability as it relates to evaluation, but then also just that dissemination piece. So we're not very good about talking about a lot of the cool things that we do. We had also, like I talked about earlier, have been really fortunate to work with the same evaluators and same implementers for a really long time from DOE's perspective, right? Our collaborators in implementation and our independent evaluators have been consistent across grants in a number of areas. But we had gotten to a place where we felt like we collectively needed kind of more real-time data. We needed data to be able to drive some of our decision making at the state level. And we had a pretty, we talk about our complex system of, support to the field. We had a pretty complex system of evaluation as well, which is a good problem to have because it means that we have to evaluate a number of grants, right? And so there were just a number of areas that we needed to be able to report on, but collectively, the requirements of each one of those weren't necessarily, we were missing some areas for us to be able to make decisions as it relates to support for the field and in general for MTSS. And so we did spend the better part of the last 2 years also working on like what comprehensive evaluation can look like if it does, irregardless of the grant, right? And so there are times that there are grant requirements that we have to report on, and those need to be integrated into our comprehensive evaluation. But also there were elements that we needed to add to be able to, report to the General Assembly on all of the good outcomes that we were having, report to, my boss and my boss's boss, and really be able to talk a little bit more holistically about the impact that we were having on the field that we knew anecdotally, but we weren't necessarily able to show through the data that we were collecting. And so we are going to run out of time if I go through all of our slides. But I do want to talk a little bit about, this is what Aaron, there's a little bit what I talked about, a lot of it what Aaron talked about. To be honest, that we could probably talk for another hour about what that looked like, developing a comprehensive, the logic model for the comprehensive evaluation and what that comprehensive evaluation looked like. But, in the spirit of sustainability, I will talk something that I've been pretty passionate about is our kind of dissemination modalities and being able to provide some information to key decision makers on what it looks like, what our practice looks like and the impact that we're having across Virginia. And so I'll start with when I started, we did an annual report. The information in the annual report was phenomenal, right? It talked about everything that we were doing. I see Amanda smirking down there. But also it was dense. It was literally a report. I don't think there was a single picture in it. It was like 10 pages of a Word document. And so to credit our evaluation team, they have worked over the last 8 years. They've taken a number of like data visualization classes and pulled examples from other states and worked diligently to go from a report that literally looked like a dense Word document to this is just a snapshot of our reporting structure here. Let me. I'm going to pull up this report so you all can see it. Maybe I'm struggling a little bit.
While he pulls that up, I'll also share something that we won't have time to show you right now, but are happy to share with you should you be interested and want to email us. In relation to dissemination, we also developed executive summaries that were universal in their template and design and type of information for every grant that we house out of our office. And we update it every time we update our APR in terms of outcomes and scope and measurement and spending each year, which has been super helpful for us to share. But it's also been great for our school divisions to see as they're working to advocate for additional support from their school boards and board of supervisors and local agencies. But I see Michael pulled up some stuff, so I'll be quiet.
Yeah, no, it's the executive summary, Aaron. I was just running through it while you were talking about it. Yeah, and this is, to credit Aaron, this is certainly it was Aaron's idea getting started, and this has helped at every level. It wasn't right or wrong at the time, but kind of my predecessor's opinion was that, we should let our coaches go out and coach. We don't need to talk to them about necessarily what the requirements of each grant are. We just want them focused on coaching. The problem then is that over the years, as we got different grants or like we were like started going in different areas, it got a little bit wonky for people to understand why we were doing certain things. And our coaches got to a place where they were like, I don't know why we're doing X, Y, or Z. I just want to go out and coach. And we're like, but we have to. And so the executive summaries have not only helped, to Aaron's point, our LEAs who are participating with us understand the why in a couple of areas and holistically what our support looks like. But it's really, I think, been most beneficial to our state systems coaches who are housed at each of our partner universities, understand the why, like understand why we were asking them to do certain things. And then internally, it's been super helpful as well as like, my boss is our deputy superintendent and she uses these on a weekly basis. So the other thing I wanted to show you all, and we'll share a couple of these with John so that there's some examples out there attached to our presentation with SIG Network. This was the other thing I wanted to show you all is this is our annual report. And it's the one I was telling you about started as a pretty dense Word document. We're really happy with where it's ended up. Our next iteration of this is going to look a lot like we're trying to still knock out some of the text because it's still pretty text heavy. The thing that I really like about this in terms of dissemination is we have broken it down in a way that has highlights directly from school divisions. It talks about our reach, and to credit our evaluation team who's working on this, they've built it in a way that we can lift out one-pagers. If we're talking about reach, if we're talking about outcomes, if we're talking about, process, you name it, family engagement, you name it, we're able to kind of go through this report. It's there holistically. It's targeted in a way that right now is our General Assembly season. The session is happening right now. We're in a long session. My boss uses this probably on a daily basis at this point, to be able to speak to a lot of the work that's happening in our unit. And so that is the main target audience of this particular report. But then we're able to pull out specific things and tailor it to different audiences, which I think has been really helpful. And one of the more like impactful things that we've done in being able to get information out about what we're doing. And so I see that we only have about 2 minutes left. I will open this to questions. Let me just flip back to the presentation, and our information is here at the end. We do have one more person on our team at the Virginia Department of Education. We are a mighty team of 3. She's pictured here, but not with us today. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them now. I'm happy to stay on. Also, please feel free to reach out. We're very accessible and we love to talk about our work.
Great. So there was one more question from Patty in the chat that you all might want to look at.
Yeah, I was just reading that. So Patty, our comprehensive evaluation. So we had for each grant that we have that we're supporting implementation for, and then we're also fortunate in Virginia to have state General Assembly funding to support systems work. Each of those things has their own logic model and priorities. And so we have worked to create a large supersize logic model that incorporates all of the different areas that are addressed through required priorities of grants and state funding, but also, to Michael's point, best practice in MTSS that may not be a required reporting measure, but something we know is an important process measure or outcome measure that we've identified as a valued outcome within our project. And so it is all of those things. And we're actually working right now, I'll see Amanda and Kayla cringe at this, but we're working right now on now working backwards. We're using that to identify larger research questions where there's some overlap, and then doing mini logic models for each research question to ensure that we're assessing all of our inputs and outputs and outcomes as a result of that.
Cool. We'd love to see something like that at some point if you were willing to share. It's really great.
We are right in the middle of it, but we would love to share where we are and when we get there for sure. And I know I'm speaking for Kayla and Amanda and Jody and Michael. There's a lot of time that's gone in, so we want other people to be able to use anything they can that's helpful.
And can you just talk a smidge more about your state system coaches? Like, were you guys a SISIP, or how did that come to be?
Yeah, you know what? Speaking like I talked earlier about having a historian, right? This happened this system is maybe a system that we're gonna address in the next few years, but it's unmoving at this point. But back in like 2007, when we said, hey, we're gonna make integrated MTSS. Here's our RTI project. Here's our PBS project. We're going to stick it together, integrated. And that happened. And so we had different coaches, right? We had RTI coaches, we had PBIS coaches. And so as we did that, they said, hey, now everybody's going to get a coach who's focused on academics and a coach who's focused on behavior. And the behavior coaches all lived at the TTAC, the Training Technical Assistance Centers that I talked about. The academic coaches lived at the Research and Implementation Center that we have at VCU that Jody leads. Now, throughout the years, their specialty areas have changed. We're far more focused on coaching and what that looks like, and not necessarily being content experts in behavior or whatever. And so that is kind of how it has evolved. Now everywhere just has 2 coaches from each one of those places. We're fortunate to be able to offer 2 coaches. I think if we want to truly scale, talk about sustainability and being smart with our resources, those coaches have similar skill sets now. And so we're talking about what it can look like to move to a single coach model so that we can be in more places. But that is not a today thing that's happening. But that's kind of the history behind it. and that's how we got to have two coaches. But I think ideally we would move to a place where we could have a greater reach. And we're working through that right now. I saw Aaron come off of mute.
Well, and I was just speaking to as well because I heard SISIP and earlier someone asked about like school quality, right? So that's a separate department from ours. We are super, super fortunate that in the last 3 years, when we started Implementation Science Academy, we made a really great connection with Office of School Quality and actually had some of their staff members attend Implementation Science Academy, and they were like, whoa, I know we've all been saying it for years, but we really do have a lot of overlapping work. Let's talk about that. Dr. Sirocco has a coach who is assigned to collaborate with OSQ. So any division that is identified as receiving federal support, but is also participating in VTSS, there is awareness and conversation about how to provide that coaching in an aligned way. So it's not like I'm hearing this from this office and this from this office. That's been a huge win in the last couple of years and an area we still want to build upon and see even more like intentional collaboration around. But it is different for us in our structure than living out of Office of School Quality.
Yeah, it's tough. Yes. It sounds very good on paper. In practice, we're still working out the kinks a little bit.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And Patty, feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk more.
And they were a CSEP state. So they did receive intensive
We
support
were, yes.
with Virginia.
Yeah,
Just to
sorry,
answer that
thank
part of the
you.
question. Also, I wanted to apologize because at the beginning, I didn't say anything about, and I don't know if they're still here. Is Kelly Henderson still here? Yes, good. So Kelly Henderson and I work together. She leads it. She lets me join the Family Partners community of practice. And so what that is, and she's the Virginia family partner specifically, which is why Michael shouted her out previously, but we meet every other month. And then every other meeting, we open it up to anyone who wants to join. So it's the family partners, such as the Parent Training and Information Centers, Community Parent Resource Centers that meet every other month. And then every quarter, it would be anyone can join. So just wanted to let you know that's where the idea for that complex change and hearing about SPDIGs working with family partners came from. And I know she's played a really important role in her team with the VTSS and the SPDIG overall. All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Aaron. This was a lot of fun. Like you all said, your presentation style is more informal and therefore more engaging. Loved to hear about how you've created all these kinds of structures for your systems to help make it make sense. There's a lot of coherence building going on. And I think that's pretty critical, and it takes a lot of time, like you all were saying. But also loved hearing about how you are working with your evaluators, and I can see the evaluators getting very excited. So there's lots to build off. But as they were saying, and as I said at the beginning, if there's anything that you'll want to hear more about, just let us know. And Michael and Aaron said that they would be happy to join us again, or there might be another way that we could dig into a topic. Right. Well, thanks everyone for staying on a little bit long. That's how exciting you guys were. Stayed on an extra 5 minutes. Such good quality material. All right, everyone take care. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.